Chapter 15-17. You have a way? Yun Jingxue was getting more and more disgusted by him. She returned to old lady Nangong and said coquettishly, "Old lady, the lower realm is the lower realm. I didn't expect so many men to be willing to degrade themselves as toy boys. I think cousin you become like this because of the bad influence of Miluo continent. We should bring cousin you back to Siam continent as soon as possible." Old lady Nangong was also frowning tightly. She said with a cold face, "Jingxue is right. We will take Yuer back immediately. We must not let him marry such a thing. Let Yuer marry Jingxue when we go back and stay away from places like Miluo continent in the future." A dark light flashed in Tong Bing's eyes. His eyelashes drooped low, hiding his true emotions. It turns out that Yun Jingxue is Nangong Yu's fiancé. Hee, I wonder what will happen to Xiyu if she were to face him? Nangong Hua sneered and said, "Jingxue, don't worry. Xiyu is just an ant after all. We will crush him to death if we want to. Tomorrow I will let Jingluo get rid of him. I don't believe that Nangong Yu will go against me because of a toy boy. Wouldn't it be too cheap to let Xiyu die like this? Besides, I haven't gotten Xiyu's wood spiritual root yet." Tong Bing blinked and said with fear, "No, you can't kill Xiyu like this." Yun Jingxue suddenly glared at him. "Know your place. Who let you speak?" With red eyes, Tong Bing crawled to Nangong Xian's side and sobbed. "Bing of course is not qualified to speak, but Third Master has saved Binger's life. Binger has to repay it, so I have to tell what I know even if you kill me." During the time Xiyu was at Miracle Healer Academy, he not only hooked up His Royal Highness King of Hell, but he also fascinated many powerful men. If you kill Xiyu directly, not only His Royal Highness King of Hell will be angry, but it will also affect his relationship with Miss Yun. Even those men who are hooked up by Xiyu will not let it go easily. Among those men, there is one named Xianmu, whose cultivation should have surpassed the nascent soul stage. Nangong Hua's pupils shrank suddenly. His expression remained uncertain. Xianmu? There is no such person in Siam, but his cultivation has surpassed the nascent soul stage, and his surname is Xian. This somehow makes me uneasy. Who is this Xiyu? A mere man can really seduce so many people? Or is this toy boy lying to them? But if it's true, wouldn't it not worth to trigger my nephew and provoke a powerful enemy just for Xiyu? Seeing Nangong Hua's expression, Tong Bing knew that he was shaken. There was a glimpse of ridicule in his eyes. His face looked even weaker and more innocent. He said with genuine concern for the Nangong family, "If you want to deal with Xiyu, unless you let His Highness the King of Hell and those men whom he hooks up with see his face clearly. Otherwise, even you kill Xiyu, it will only backfire." Nangong Hua glared at Tong Bing with a squint. "You have a way." Tong Bing bit his lip. Teardrops were still on his pretty face, looking pitiful. He said softly, "Xiyu is domineering in Miracle Healer Academy. Binger is not the only one who is persecuted by him, but also there are many people who hate him to his core. As long as we unite with those people and find a way to expose Xiyu's true face to others, I believe His Highness King of Hell will no longer treat him as a treasure. He will only abandon him like a worn-out shoe." Chapter 15-18. Teach a lesson at that time. If Ms. Yun wants to kill or torture him, I believe His Royal Highness King of Hell will not stop you. He will even thank Ms. Yun for letting him know his way back. When Yun Jingxue heard that, she snorted with an uncertain expression in his eyes. "You better mean what you say." Tong Bing shrugged his shoulders, leaned against Nangong Xian, and said in a low voice, "Binger did this not only to avenge Xiyu's persecution of me, but also to repay Third Master's life-saving grace. If Third Master is willing, trust Binger. Let Binger arrange everything." Nangong Xian was flattered by Tong Bing's eyes full of gratitude and admiration. He smiled at Nangong Hua and said, "Second brother, my toy boy still has some brains. Why don't you let him try? You also know how hot-tempered Nangong Yu is. If you really kill Xiyu directly, not only will she not marry Jingxue, but he will directly break the ties with our Nangong family." Old Lady Nangong also thought of this possibility. She lowered her brows slightly and said in a deep voice, "Old Third is right. We must not let Ewer be separated from us. Let Old Third's people try it." A crazy smile flashed across Tong Bing's eyes. He lowered his eyebrows, trying to suppress the impulse to laugh wildly. Shiyu, just wait for your reputation to be ruined. As for Lu Jishi, it's time to contact her and ask her to contribute to Shiyu's fall. Tong Bing's suggestion made Nangong Hua finally decide not to kill Shiyu. However, Yun Jingxue couldn't accept it. She was a majestic young miss from the Yun family and a talented girl from the upper realm, but she still had to be afraid of a toy boy from the lower realm? If this kind of thing gets out, how can I have the face to see people? When Tong Bing learned that Yun Jingxue wanted to teach Shiyu a lesson, instead of stopping her, he added fuel to the fire. "Miss Yun, although you can't kill Shiyu directly, you should teach him a lesson. You should let everyone in the Miracle Healer Academy knows who is His Highness King of Hell's real fiancé." Yun Jingshue's face was full of pride when she heard the words. Then she took Lu Yun with her and headed toward the Huang medical branch pointed by Tong Bing. Tong Bing looked at her back and cursed in a low voice, "Idiot." However, this idiot is just right to attract Xiaoyu's attention, making him unaware of my arrangement. Moreover, Yun Jingshue's strength was very high, several times stronger than Nangong Xion's, plus there are many powerful guards around her. I don't believe that Shiyu can escape this time. Yun Jingxue looked at the young man walking on the tree-shaded road not far away, and she couldn't believe her eyes. No matter which city in Siam continent she was in, she never saw anyone more beautiful than her. Every man can't move his eyes when seeing her. But she didn't expect that she would see a man more beautiful than her. Compared with Shiyu's alluring demeanor, her beauty could only be regarded as gaudy at best. Yun Jingxue stared fixedly at Shiyu's face. Even though it was a man in front of her, she wished she could rush over and scratch this face immediately. "You're Shiyu, that scum who seduces cousin Yu." She was on her way to the library, then she suddenly felt a malicious gaze. However, she had been used to being stared at by people because of the wedding news, so she wasn't bothered by her at all. Unexpectedly, this person suddenly rushed in front of her. Chapter 15-19. Fiancé? She squinted at the person coming. This was a very glamorous girl. She was only 17 years old, but her cultivation had already reached the peak of the nascent soul stage. As Yun Jingxue approached, she found that the young man in front of him had skin that was more beautiful than snow. His appearance was also peerless. The fire of jealousy in her heart was burning. She raised her hand and slapped toward Hashi's face fiercely. Hashi swayed slightly and easily avoided the slap, but a dangerous light shone from her eyes. "Who are you? Wanna fight? I'm ready for it." Because of the noise here, many people were attracted. Yun Jingxue didn't expect that Hashi could dodge her slap, which made her even angrier. She gritted her teeth and said, "Let me tell you, I'm Nangong Yu's fiancé. You shameless toy boy. Don't think that you can marry into the Nangong family by just spreading some news. I don't care what kind of relationship you had with cousin Yu before, but from now on, you'd better disappear on your own. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." She frowned, and she slowly repeated, "Fiancé." When it came to fiancé, she thought of Feng Lianying, and her mood turned bad instantly. This guy Nangong Yu really has a lot of bad entanglement. The students of Miracle Healer Academy who were watching were also whispering in amazement. Shiyu had absolute authority in Miracle Healer Academy, but it didn't mean that everyone had no opinion on marriage between men. Deep down in many people's hearts, they were still ashamed of Shiyu's behavior of marrying man. Now that they heard Nangong Yu even had a fiancé, and that the fiancé had come to her, the puzzlement and disappointment of these people turned into anger and contempt. Qing Wan, who was following Hashi, trembled with anger when she heard these words. Seeing Hashi's downcast face, she thought she really believed it. Qing Wan immediately pointed at Yun Jingxue and scolded, "You nonsense. Since when did our master have a fiancé? Even if he did, It will only be our prin, our young master. What fiancé? I think you just want to marry our master on your own right. As Qingwan said that, she also took out a red natal pendant, on which the phoenix pattern shone. I'm Zhu Ke, one of King of Hell's confidants. I'm following young master under my master's command. How about you? How dare you say that you are master's fiancé? Do you even have a token for master? What are you? Dare to talk to my lady like that? Lu Yun was stunned. She launched a green belt toward Qingwan. The originally soft belt turned into a sharp blade and pierced toward Qingwan's chest. Although Lu Yun looked ordinary, her strength was not much lower than that of Yun Jingxue. Qingwan was no more than the gold core stage, so there was no way she could resist it. With a sound, the sharp blade transformed from the green belt cut off Qingwan's long sword and stabbed toward her chest. At the critical moment, Hashi grabbed across the distance. Qingwan was dragged back several steps by her, narrowly avoiding the attack. The green belt turned toward Hashi. Hashi sneered, and Li Shui's sword suddenly appeared out of thin air and went toward the whistling green belt. There was a loud impact. The green belt shook violently, making sizzling, tearing sounds as if it couldn't bear the impact. Lu Yun was astounded. Her magic weapon was slashed into several pieces, becoming a pile of trash. Chapter 1520. Picked the wrong person, you actually ruined my magic weapon. Hashi looked at Lu Yun and Yun Jingxue coldly and said with a sneer, Enough nonsense? Either fight or leave. Yun Jingxue was frightened by Hashi's casual strike. Before she came here, she didn't pay much attention to this toy boy from the lower realm. However, even Yun Jingxue herself wasn't sure of blocking Lu Yun's strike, but she easily resisted the strike and even destroyed her magic weapon. Who is this Shiyu? Yun Jingxue's face turned pale and red. She gritted her teeth after a long while and said, You shameless toy boy. Let me tell you, Cousin Yu and I are engaged. I'm his legitimate fiancé. No matter how much you pester Cousin Yu, you won't end well. The coldness in Hashi's eyes gradually turned into violent impatience. Her smile was cold and fierce. It seems that you are planning to fight. Very well. It just happens that I'm getting quite irritated recently. The light of Li Shui's sword soared, and the terrified aura erupted from Hashi. The students of Miracle Healer Academy, who were still chattering, were so frightened by the powerful spirit pressure that their legs trembled. They all screamed and scattered. After returning from the magical beast forest, Hashi had been restraining her edge, keeping a low profile and showing no sense of presence, so they almost forgot what kind of power this most terrifying genius since the establishment of Miracle Healer Academy had. And Hashi was indeed infuriated. Although she had always been not interested in other people's foul words, and she didn't bother to pay attention to it. However, again and again, people came to provoke her with their mouths as dirty as shit. They scolded her every day that she was not worthy of Nangong Yu and told her not to pester Nangong Yu. How could she still have a good mood? I don't go mad. You really think I'm a weakling? You have an opinion. Why don't you go to Nangong Yu, who announced the marriage news? All of you come to trigger me one by one. Do you think I'm easy to be controlled? Hee, I'll show you guys the consequences of picking the wrong person. After 15 minutes, the people of the Miracle Healer Academy were already crowded there. However, so many people were silenced by the fearsome scene. Even the students of Huang Medical Branch couldn't help swallowing from time to time. Shiyu is so scary, too scary. Yun Jingxue couldn't help crying. Tears and snot were hanging on her bruised and swollen face. The clothes on her body were tattered. Sei kept rolling on the ground in order to escape Shiyu's attack. Woo-woo, help me. You bunch of trash. Help me now.
Ah. Stop, please stop.
The 3 bodyguards brought by Yun Jingxue, including Lu Yun, were all nascent soul stage, but now they were all beaten to the ground by Shiyu. They didn't know what method Shiyu used. As long as they were hurt by Shiyu's sword, they would immediately become limp and unable to move. Their dantians obviously had powerful spiritual power, but they couldn't exert it at all. So, the majestic nascent soul stage experts, under the watchful eyes of everyone, were beaten up by a gold course stage young man. And Yun Jingxue, who was beaten the most, was going crazy. In her life, she had never been humiliated like this. You woo-woo, just you wait. I won't let you go. You'll have a miserable end. A cold light flashed in Heshi's eyes, and she sneered. Oh, are you reminding me to get rid of the root before the weed grows? Chapter 1521. Just come. As soon as she said that, the red and blue Li Shui sword soared into the sky with an ear-piercing whistling sound. Then it slashed fiercely toward Yun Jingshue's vital point. Yun Jingshue's face was full of horror. She closed his eyes and let out a hysterical scream. Stop! How dare you hurt Jingxue? A sharp shout came from not far away. Then a black light flashed. Heshi felt the Li Shui sword hanging in the air receive a powerful impact, making a clang. The powerful attack receded like a tide. The light and shadow of Li Shui's sword disappeared. It turned and returned to Heshi's hand. Not far away, a few powerful men came forward slowly, staring at Heshi with a sharp gaze. As soon as Yun Jingxue saw someone coming, she rushed over while crying, Uncle Hua, you must stand up for Jingxue. This Shiyu, this scum, how dare he humiliates me like this. Woo woo woo. If he doesn't die, Jingxue doesn't want to live either. The people who came were Nangong Hua, Zheng Luo, and his subordinates. Seeing these people, Heshi's heart shuddered. Her expression immediately became a little dignified. These few men who appeared suddenly were all above the nascent soul later stage. Nangong Hua and Zheng Luo had one even reached the soul-splitting stage. Nangong Hua stared deeply at the young man in front with a trace of amazement in his eyes. Then he glanced at Yun Jingxue and her subordinates, who were beaten terribly. The amazement turned into deep fear and shock. I always thought that Shiyu is just a beautiful young man, and Nangongyu is just bewitched by him. But now it seems that the truth might not be so simple. A young man who lives in the lower realms and is only at the gold core stage can actually beat 5 nascent soul stage experts. With such talent and strength, if he is given a chance to grow up, he might become another Nangongyu. Could this be the reason why Nangongyu wants to marry him? He wants to train this young man so that he can secretly regain the power of Nangong family? Nangong Hua's heart trembled. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. What are you? You're just an ant from the lower realm, and you dare to hurt the people of my Nangong family. I will give you 2 choices. Either you cut off your own arms, or you die here. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. People from Huang Medical Branch had already sneaked away to seek help from the elders of Miracle Healer Academy. The other people looked at Heshi with pity and helplessness. No matter how strong she was, how could she compete with the people from the upper realm? What was more, the strength of these martial artists was so unfathomable. However, Heshi didn't even change her expression. Instead of fear, her eyes were burning with flames. What are you? If you want to fight, just come. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Nangong Hua only felt that his breath was stuck in his throat. He was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Since he became the family master, except for Nangong-yu's unfilial nephew, no one dared to talk to him like that. Killing intent leaked from his eyes. Nangong Hua waved his hand to Zheng Luo, who was behind him, and said in a deep voice, "Teach him a lesson. As long as you don't kill him, do whatever you can. Best to cripple him." Yes, family masters. A bloodthirsty light flashed in Zheng Luo's eyes. A huge hammer suddenly appeared in his hand as he walked toward Heshi, with a sneer. That hammer seemed to be an ordinary weapon that those low-rank martial artists who relied purely on strength would use it. Chapter 1522. Counterattack. However, when Zheng Luo held it up, all the onlookers felt a cold, bloody aura blowing toward their faces. Zheng Luo was already at the soul-splitting stage. Although he had just advanced not long ago, why would he take a gold core stage small character like Xiu seriously? A chain was connected to the handle of the hammer, making cracking sounds. Zheng Luo waved his hand lightly, and the hammer spun like a fan in midair. As it spun, dazzling lightning coiled around the hammer, making thunderous sounds. When Zheng Shouyue, Li Qingquan, and other elders arrived, what they saw was the meteor hammer whistling toward Xiu. At this time, the shadow of the hammer had covered the sun above Xiu's head, making Xiu look so weak and small. Zheng Shouyue let out an angry and shrill exclamation, "Stop!" However, it was too late. The shadow of the hammer and the thunder were about to tear Xiu into pieces the next moment. Many Huang Medical Branch students screamed in horror. The other students couldn't bear to close their eyes. An excited smile appeared on Zheng Luo's face. What he liked most was seeing people smashed by meteor hammers to the point of dying. He had reserved his power. If this young man died like this, he could only blame himself for being too weak. But the next moment, Zheng Luo's smile froze on his face. Boom! Dash! The dazzling flames spread suddenly, like an explosion, and a fiery air wave swept across hundreds of meters. The ground of Miracle Healer Academy, which was paved with special green bricks, melted and shattered one after another. The trees on both sides were also swept by the flames, turning into ashes in an instant. Seeing that the situation was not good, Zheng Shouyue and Li Qingquan quickly set up their protective shields, enveloping the students and retreating. They narrowly avoided the engulfment of the flames. Zheng Luo, who was the first to bear the brunt, only felt that the flames were like hellfire. His protective shield was corroded at the touch. I'm at the soul-splitting stage. How can I possibly be injured by the flame of a gold core stage kid? Nangong Hua and the others were also shocked. They used magic weapons and spiritual power to resist. However, Yunjing Xue and the others were out of luck. They had just been poisoned by Xiu, so their spiritual power could not be used and could only be beaten passively. When the flames hit, Nangong Hua and the others only cared about protecting themselves. When they remembered to pull them into the protective cover, the hair of Yunjing Xue and the others had been scorched black. When the wind blew, black ash fluttered down and exposed patches of scalp like lumpy head. After burning for 10 seconds, the flames slowly subsided and dissipated in the air. Zheng Luo panted heavily while looking at the young man-boy not far away with horror. The meteor hammer had already fallen to the ground. Although it was not burned to ashes, most of it was melted. The young man in front of him was unharmed, but his face was shockingly pale. Nangong Hua gasped. A gold core stage young man unexpectedly blocked the soul-splitting stage's attack, and he even counterattacked. Who is this young man? At this moment, He felt weak. If she moved a little, she would directly collapse to the ground. What she had just used was a newly learned move in level 3 of the Mahao Inheritance, Sinless Fire. This move should originally be used after reaching the peak of the nascent soul stage. Once the Sinless Fire ignited, it could burn everything within a radius of several kilometers. Even the soul-splitting stage powerhouse couldn't stop the burn of this Sinless Fire. Chapter 1523. Reunion. However, He was only at the gold core stage now. How could she condense Sinless Fire? Therefore, she thought of a way to use the circle of life in her body to convert the other 5 types of spiritual powers into fire spiritual power in a short period of time and launch this attack. This was a truly fatal blow, and its power was astonishingly powerful. But after the attack, He only felt so weak that she could fall asleep at any time. Not to mention taking another blow from soul-splitting stage. Even if Yunjing Xue rushed to retaliate now, He would be defeated with one blow. It was a pity that Yunjing Xue didn't know about it. She was frightened by Xiu that she held her burned bald head and cried. Nangong Hua's face became more and more gloomy. He could feel Zheng Luo's disordered internal aura, which meant he suffered major internal injuries. A gold core stage can actually hurt the soul-splitting stage. If such a young man is united with Nangong Yu, The consequences will be disastrous. Even if I will face Nangong crazy revenge in the end, this young man must not be kept alive. Thinking of this, Nangong finally walked forward slowly, with a cold face. He was wearing gloves on his hands. After taking off the gloves, a pair of fiery red palms covered with scales was revealed. He wanted to kill this genius young man before he gained more power. In the distance, Lu Zishi watched this scene excitedly and nervously. She bit her fingers nervously and muttered, "Kill him. Kill this scum. No, it's too easy for him. It's too easy for him to die like this." The young man wearing a white mask laughed and said lightly, "Don't worry, Nangong will abolish Shiyu. But he won't kill him right now. Yes, abolish him and let him become a trash and a slave to be trampled on." Lu Zishi became more and more excited. She almost wanted to jump out to see that man's miserable end with her own eyes. But she was immediately stopped by the young man beside her. "What do you think of the cooperation I mentioned?" When Lu Zishi was stopped, her originally excited nerves relaxed. She slowly turned around to look at the young man with the mask, then she smiled sweetly. "Tong Bing, we are already old friends. Why are you still wearing a mask? You really recognized me?" Tong Bing seemed not surprised. He chuckled and took off the mask, revealing a harmless face, but only for a moment. The mask was put on again. "Shiyu is too vicious, too cunning. I can only set him up from the dark." When Lu Zishi heard the name Shiyu, she gritted her teeth. "As long as I can make Shiyu suffer, I don't mind working with anyone. What do you want me to do?" Tong Bing showed viciousness in his eyes as he looked into the distance. "You wait for my news. I will let you know when I need your help. Don't let anyone know our plan." Not far behind Lu Zishi, Caillou stood beside Lu Zishi's bodyguards. Looking at the two people whispering at a low voice, a dark light flashed in his eyes. At this moment, the battle situation in the distance changed again. After Nangong took off the gloves, the hands full of scales suddenly swelled. Behind Nangong there were countless similar ghost claw shadows rushed toward Hishi. Chapter 1524. You are the same Zheng Shouyue, and the others couldn't see how bad Shiyu's situation was at this time. If she really got hit, she would cripple even if he didn't die. Zheng Shouyue's mind was buzzing with wild thoughts. He rushed forward almost without thinking. However, the moment he touched the swaying ghost claw shadows, he felt a burst of tearing pain all over his body. Then he screamed and got knocked away. Nangong sneered. He didn't bother these ants from the lower realm. All he wanted was Shiyu. Even if he couldn't kill him, he would at least tear off his hands and feet, break his meridians, and make him unable to grow again. The black ghost claw shadows fell, but the expected sound of flesh and blood being torn apart did not come. Nangong only felt a huge pressure rushing toward his face, causing a suffocating pain in his chest. His body instinctively retreated quickly. Hishi's frail body was embraced in a warm and broad embrace. The breath of that embrace was so familiar, so reassuring for her, as if she had found a shelter. Nangong hugged her frail body tightly, fearing for a while. He lowered his head and said in a hoarse voice, "Sheer, I'm sorry. I didn't protect you well." Hishi buried her head in his arms and rubbed her face coquettishly. Then she said in annoyance, "It's all your fault. If you didn't arbitrarily announce the marriage, I wouldn't have been entangled by so many people. Even your family members came here to kill me. Do they deserve to be my family?" Nangong sneered. Looking down at the girl's pale face, he felt full of guilt and pity. He whispered in her ear, "Yes, it's all my fault. When we're married, you can punish me however you want. Well, it's best to be in bed." Hishi blushed and kicked him angrily, trying to kick him away, but her spiritual power and physical strength had not yet recovered, and her whole body was limp like a ball of water, so kicking seemed like flirting with him. The people watching not far away seemed to see pink bubbles popping out from them. Suddenly someone from the Huang medical branch snorted coldly. "Who the hell said that our Shiyu isn't worthy of His Highness King of Hell? Don't the person who said that feel blind?" Many people in Miracle Healer Academy who originally despised Shiyu for hooking up with His Highness King of Hell couldn't help swallowing at this moment. They obviously hated same-sex relationship, but looking at the sweet scene in front of them, they somehow felt an indescribable harmony, as if Shiyu and Nangongyu belonged to each other naturally. Nangongyu, you unfilial son, is this how you treat your elders and your uncles? Nangonghua glared at Nangongyu coldly. The ghost claw shadows behind him seemed to feel the master's anger and swayed wildly. The pair of hands with scales clenched tightly, making click sounds. Nangongyu's attitude of completely ignoring him completely angered the current family master of the Nangong family. Nangongyu held Heshi with one hand as he glanced at Nangonghua and smiled mockingly. Elders deserve respect only if they look like elders. Second uncle, did you forget that I said before that the only one I'm marrying is Shiyu? If anyone dares to stop me, I will make them pay a terrifying price. Even you, my dear uncles, are the same. Chapter 1525. Who else dares to touch you? Nangongyu turned his gaze on Jingluo and said with an eerie killing intent, "What are you? You dare to hurt my wife. Have you ever thought of the consequences?" Before Nangongyu finished speaking, his figure suddenly flashed. A power force was charged in his hand and swung toward Zhengluo's face fiercely. Zhengluo let out a scream. He was sent into midair, then he fell heavily again. When he landed, everyone saw that his face was covered in blood, and the skin on his face was cracked in several places. The most frightening thing was that all of Zhengluo's teeth had all fallen off. Martial artists had spiritual power that could enhance self-recovery. External trauma was generally no problem, but for broken arms and missing legs, except for doctors who truly had godly medical skills, others couldn't treat them. The same was true for teeth that were knocked out. Zhengluo looked at his teeth that fell out all over the floor and opened his mouth. Hearing the sound of his panting and thinking that a soul-splitting stage martial artist like him was humiliated like this in the lower realm, he fainted suddenly. You. Zhengluo is the confidant of our Nangong family, you. Nangonghua was trembling with anger, unable to speak. But Nangongyu sneered and said, "I spared his life for the sake of my grandmother. If you feel dissatisfied, why don't I screw his head off right now? I want to see who dares to touch the person I, Nangongyu, want to marry." These words were not just for Nangonghua. His cold gaze swept over everyone around, including Lu Zishi and Tong Bing, whose faces could hardly be seen in the distance. Everyone caught by this sight couldn't help but tremble all over. If she was scary, then His Highness King of Hell, who was now recognized as the #1 person in the Miluo continent, was absolutely terrifying. He was so horrifying that no one could raise a trace of resistance. But Nangonghua refused to accept it. "I'm from the upper realm Siam continent. I'm the master of the Nangong family, and I'm Nangongyu's uncle. Why should I be humiliated by a junior? Why should I be intimidated by Nangongyu?" Nangonghu took a deep breath, and his eyes were filled with ominous light. Not only the ghost claw phantasms behind him didn't disappear, but they even became more rampant and solid. He looked coldly at Nangongyu and Shiyu, who was in his arms, and said grimly, You can marry any woman. Your second uncle, I will not interfere, but the premise it must be a woman. What is this thing? A toy boy? You can play, but if you want to marry him, your second uncle and grandmother absolutely disagree. Do you want our Nangong family to lose face in front of the world? Nangongyu sneered. What are you, Nangonghua? You bowed your head in front of that woman Lu Wushuang, lying at her feet like a dog and listening to her. Do you think you and the current Nangong family have any face? Nangonghua took a sharp breath. He knew that Nangongyu had been investigating the cause of his parents' death, but he didn't know how much he had found. Does he know everything? Nangonghua was flustered, then a strong killing intent rose in his mind. He said coldly, "Since you are so stubborn, then don't blame Uncle for being rude." After finishing speaking, He waved his hand, and the martial artists at the peak of the nascent Souls stage lined up behind him. The leader of them was 1 foot stepping into the soul-splitting stage. Chapter 1526. Void Spirit Shield. Nangong Hua said in a deep voice, "Catch that Shiyu. If anyone obstructs or resists, kill." "Yes, family masters." Nangong Yu's eyes turned cold. He was about to kill the guards of the Nangong family first, but a fierce ghost claw attack from Nangong Hua roared over. Nangong Hua had already thought clearly. Since his nephew valued Shiyu so much, at least he had to control Shiyu first. No matter how high Nangong Yu's cultivation level was, Nangong Hua was also at the soul-splitting stage. If he had to protect Shiyu, he could never be his opponent. In the end, both of them would die. But if he let go of Shiyu and fought with him, the guards of Nangong family would capture Shiyu alive. Nangong Hua sneered. "No matter what, Nangong Yu and Shiyu can't escape from me." The howling ghost claws with by murderous vibe rushed toward Nangong Yu and Hashi. But Hashi suddenly pushed Nangong Yu out. Nangong Yu didn't show any surprise. His body flickered. The black long sword in his hand unsheathed as he rushed toward Nangong Hua's guards. Seeing this, Nangong Hua was overjoyed. Is Nangong Yu stupid? He actually left Shiyu to attack those guards? Does he think Shiyu can resist my attack? But at the next moment, a scene that horrified Nangong Hua happened. The ghost claw phantasm seemed to hit a wall and be bounced away when approaching Shiyu. Moreover, the bouncing force even made Nangong Hua take a step back. Hashi looked at Nangong Hua's embarrassed face leisurely and indifferently, but a half-smile awoke on her mouth. "What's going? What the hell did this Shiyu do?" Nangong Hua was startled and suspicious. A hint of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. The hands that returned to normal size enlarged and turned into terrifying ghost claws again. The onlookers only felt that a shadow flashed in front of them, and a violent attack was launched toward Shiyu. "Be careful, Shiyu." Terrified screams sounded one after another. Zheng Shouyue and the students from Huang Medical Branch turned pale with fright. Even Qing Wan yelled with a pale face, "Master, hurry, help." However, the young man's frail body wasn't torn into pieces as they thought. Nangong Hua's attack caused a rumbling noise when landing in front of Shiyu. The aftermath of the attack that leaked out made people tremble all over. However, none of the attacks fell on Shiyu. Amidst the violent storm, the peerless young man smiled leisurely. He even had the leisure to straighten his own clothes. Impossible. How is this possible?
How?
Nangong Hua's entire face twisted. His face was full of anger and disbelief. He couldn't believe that his attack couldn't hurt a gold core stage kid at all. Suddenly, Nangong Hualing looked closely at Hashi's surroundings. Only then did he realize that the young man's body was covered with a layer of transparent void spirit shield. It was almost firmly attached to the young man's body, and the fluctuation of spiritual power was almost non-existent that Nangong Hua didn't notice the void spirit shield at all. However, even the soul-splitting stage martial artist couldn't cast such a void spirit barrier, let alone Nangong Yu. Chapter 1527. Disciple and why. Nangong Hua was astounded. He looked around in panic and shouted, "Who is it? Which senior is it? Stop being sneaky and show yourself? Why are you protecting a toy boy from the lower realm? Bah, you bullied my darling disciple, and you still have the nerve to ask me why? Do you believe I will cut off you bastards' heads and kicked like balls?" Nangong Hua suddenly heard the voice coming from above, but even if he gathered spiritual power in his eyes, he couldn't see anyone, making him even more panic. Just as he was about to speak, an upside-down human had suddenly appeared in front of him. An old face with a gray beard and hair was facing him upside down, looking at him with disgust. Then, he'd burp a mouthful of alcohol directly on Nangong Hua's face. Nangong Hua was terrified by this sudden scene. He backed away in quick steps, stumbled, and almost fell to the ground in embarrassment. The old man, who was floating upside down in the air, smiled, turned over in the air, landed on the ground, and ran straight toward Hishi. "Yo, my adorable disciple. Long time no see. I really miss you." Hishi looked at him teasingly. She said with a clear and sweet voice, "Master, are you missing me? Or my wine?" "Ha ha." The old man scratched his hair and laughed awkwardly. "The wines will be finished no matter how many wines there are. After drinking all the wines, I will think of you. There is no difference between thinking about wine and thinking about you, right?" Hishi's mocking expression couldn't hold back any longer. She smirked and showed a delightful smile. "Got it. I just made a lot of new wines recently. I'm sure Master will be satisfied." She knew that her master of course didn't come just for the wine. Otherwise, he would not have appeared at this timing. He probably heard the news about Nangong's marriage, and he knew Nangong's identity, so he purposely came here to support her. These words from Hishi were more comfortable than telling 10,000 words of flattery to the old man. "My disciple is really the best." At this time, Nangonghua looked at the old man as if he had seen a ghost. His finger pointing at the old man was trembling as he stammered, You are immortal Xianqing?" The old man looked at him with disgust and put his hands on his hips as he said, "You are the one who attacked my darling disciple, and you scolded me for being sneaky?" Nangonghua was dumbstruck. All the Siam continent people present, including Yun Jingxue, who had a lumpy head, all showed incredible shocked expressions. No one in Siam continent really did know about immortal Xianqing. Its strength can be compared with Divine Moon Palace's venerable Huiyu and Lu family's old monsters. The Nangong family and the Yun family were just small families attached to the Lu family, but they had never even met the master of the Lu family, let alone a powerhouse like immortal Xianqing, whose whereabouts were erratic. But this powerhouse expert told them that Xiu, that young man from the lower realm who they regarded as a toy boy, was his disciple. How could everyone not be shocked? No wonder that this Xiu has such a powerful ability at such a young age. If his talent is ordinary, how can immortal Xianqing accept him as disciple? Chapter 1528. Deserved to be slapped. Immortal Xianqing squinted his eyes, glanced at Nangong Huazheng Luo and the guards who fought with Nangong Yu, and said with a cold voice, "All of you are really getting bolder. Don't you forget that the one gave the order that martial artists on the upper realm plane are not allowed to enter and leave the lower plane at will, let alone attack the people in the lower plane? Are you not afraid of being annihilated for acting recklessly in Miluo continent?" When immortal Xianqing said that, Nangonghua's body visibly trembled. Deep fear was shown in his eyes. That was awe and fear 100 times stronger than facing immortal Xianqing. In Siam continent, no one dared to violate that godlike existence. No one. However, the godlike person had disappeared for decades. Maybe he would never appear again. That was why more and more people no longer obeyed his orders. Thinking of this, Nangonghua felt better. He forced a smile and said, "Immortal Xianqing, don't be angry. It's not just our Nangong family who go in and out of the Miluo continent at will. Isn't the Green Vince clan acting recklessly in this continent too? If the one still exists, can the Green Vince clan survive until now?" Immortal Xianqing did not refute, but he only smiled meaningfully. "I hope you will not regret it in the future." Just as they were talking, the last guard of the Nangong family was defeated. Nangong Yushir leisurely walked back to Hishi's side. When he was about to embrace his beloved, immortal Xianqing turned around and launched a gust of wind with his sleeve. Nangong Yu was pushed back a few steps by the strong wind, and his face turned grim instantly. Immortal Xianqing snorted, "Boy of the Nangong family, you actually let your bastard relatives bully my darling disciple, and now you still want to get close to my darling disciple in your dream. If it weren't for your dead father and your grandmaster, I will beat you together." Nangong Yu stared back in displeasure and said coldly, "Old man, even without you, I can protect Sheer well. You'd better go back where you come from." As he said that, He ignored Immortal Xianqing's prying eyes, hugged He, and gave Immortal Xianqing a provocative look. Immortal Xianqing was so furious that his beard trembled, but seeing his disciple's obedient and sweet appearance in the brat's arms, he felt that even if he beat Nan Gongyu, it would be a futile effort. Immediately, he glared fiercely at Nan Gonghua, venting his anger on these guys. Nan Gonghua was trembling all over. He endured the unwillingness and fear in his mind for a long while before bowing respectfully and saying, "Immortal Xianqing, it's all my fault. I didn't expect Shiyu to be your disciple." Sorry, Immortal Xianqing flicked his sleeve and slapped Nan Gonghua hard on the face twice. Although these slaps did not use spiritual power, they were a great humiliation to Nan Gonghua, the family master, especially in front of the lower realm trash. Immortal Xianqing stroked his beard and laughed. "Oh, how refreshing." Sure enough, the people in the Nangong family from top to bottom, from the old to the young, are not good things. All of you deserve to be slapped. As he spoke, he gave Nan Gongyu a side glance. Nan Gonghua's face turned green and pale. The shame and anger in his eyes almost burned out his reason. However, Immortal Xianqing's strength was higher than him. No matter how much dissatisfaction he had, he could only suppress it. Chapter 1529. Match-up. He glanced at Nan Gongyu and He, who were embracing each other. Then he respectfully said to Immortal Xianqing, "Immortal Xianqing, it's not that I want to target your disciple. It's just that you saw it too. My nephew Nan Gongyu actually wants to marry your disciple Shiyu. This is really ridiculous. I went into conflict with Shiyu because I was shocked. I believe Immortal Xianqing will not agree on this marriage, right?"
What do you mean by that?
Nan Gonghua babbled so many words, but Immortal Xianqing only heard one meaning. "You mean that my disciple is not good enough for your nephew? Bah, is there anyone my disciple can't match? As long as she likes it, I will support her." Nan Gonghua's face distorted for a while. He didn't know whether Immortal Xianqing was pretending to be stupid or deliberately messing around. He gritted his teeth and said, "Both of them are men. Don't Immortal Xianqing think that it is inappropriate for two men to get married? Who will inherit yours legacy? Immortal Xianqing, don't you worry that she will have no successors?" Immortal Xianqing was taken aback at first. Then he laughed out loud. His beard and eyebrows trembled due to the laugh, as if he heard the funniest joke in the world. After laughing enough, he examined He and Nan Gongyu before said leisurely, "What's wrong? As long as my disciple likes it, let alone one man, even if he wants 100 men, I won't stop him. What's more, it's clear that your Nangong boy is pestering my disciple every day. If you dare, let Nangong stop following my disciple." "Why are you Nangong family bullying my disciple? Is it because he has no background? Let me tell you, Shiyu is my only darling disciple. If anyone dares to bully him, I will teach you a great lesson." Immortal Xianqing's idea was very simple. Even if my darling disciple is a man, it is Nan Gongyu matching up to him. How can you look down on him? Since you all despise my apprentice, I won't tell you that she is a woman. Just go crazy yourself. As for Nan Gongyu, Xianqing snorted. His faint gaze pierced at the man occupying his disciple. "I warn you, if you want to marry my darling disciple, wait until you get rid of these people first." Nan Gongyu was about to answer, then Nan Gonghua suddenly looked at Nan Gongyu sullenly. He said in a deep voice, "Nan Gongyu, are you really planning to marry a man back? Even if you don't think about Nangong family, don't you worry that your grandma will be sad if she finds out?" After speaking, Nan Gonghua paused and said meaningfully, "Your grandmother thought that you were going to marry a pretty lady, so she came here especially from Siam continent. I dare not let her know that her good grandson is going to marry a man." Nan Gongyu was taken aback. He murmured, "Grandmother also came to Miracle Healer Academies? Of course, he is in the Mojing Pavilion now." Seeing Nan Gongyu's expression, Nan Gonghua felt complacent. Sure enough, Old Lady Nangong is Nangong Yu's weakness. As long as Nangong Yu showed hesitation, immortal Xianqing would definitely burst into anger. The marriage would naturally be cancelled. Otherwise, after learning about Shiyu's background, Nangong Hua really didn't know what to do. Unexpectedly, Nangong Yu was just stunned for a moment before saying firmly, "The person I want to marry is Shiyu. It doesn't matter whether he is a man or a woman. I believe Grandma will understand me." Chapter 1530. Kill. Grandma came to the lower realm because of my marriage? Nangongyu felt warm and moved. He had already decided to meet his grandmother in a while and tell her Shir's true gender. He could disregard anyone's opinions and lives in Nangong family, but old lady Nangong was his only concern in Nangong family. Nangongyu hoped that his marriage with Shi would get her sincere blessing. Before Nangong Hua could speak, Lu Yun beside Yun Jingxue suddenly yelled hysterically, "No. The old lady will never agree. Shiyu is not only a man, but he is also flirtatious. He has ambiguous relationships with several men. Such a scum should be locked up in a joy house to be played by those men. How can be he young Master Yu's wife? Master Yu should marry our young lady." Before Lu Yun finished speaking, Nangong Yu launched a dark red light from his hand. In the blink of an eye, Yun Jingxue didn't even have time to scream, and Nangong Hua didn't even have time to stop the attack. The light shot through Lu Yun's chest and burst her heart. Lu Yun covered her heart, opened his mouth wide, and made a broken voice, "You kill." Before she finished speaking, she was dead. Nangong Yu's face was gloomy. There seemed to be a storm in his eyes. Immortal Xianqing and Heshi also frowned. The surrounding crowd was all shocked. In the distance, Tong Bing and Lu Zixi had quietly left. Lu Zixi gritted her teeth and said, "That scum Shi really has a good master. He actually didn't suffer this time. How lucky is he?" A trace of resentment flashed in Tong Bing's eyes. Then it disappeared and turned into a deep smile. "Forget it anyway. We didn't intend to use that idiot Yun Jingxue to deal with Shiyu. The good show we prepared for Shiyu is still coming. Speaking of which, the medicine from your doctor's association is really good." That Lu Yun's last performance must have planted seeds of doubt in everyone's hearts. When our plan is implemented, I believe that even the students and elders of Miracle Healer Academy will believe that Shiyu is a promiscuous scum. Lu Zixi laughed loudly. Her beautiful face distorted due to overexcitement. "That's our doctor's association's unique drug. My dad doesn't even have much in hand, so how can it not be good? As long as that scum Shiyu can get a miserable end, not to mention the unique drug, I don't mind even if losing the entire doctor's association." Tong Bing's eyelashes drooped slightly, and his mouth evoked a sinister smile. "Don't worry, Fairy Zixi, as long as our plan goes well, not to mention Nangong Yu and Miracle Healer Academy, even Shiyu's master, Immortal Xianqing, will be shamed to have such a disciple. Think of the old man who is feared by the Nangong family, and his terrifying strength." Tong Bing felt hot in his heart. "When Shiyu is eliminated, I will serve Immortal Xianqing attentively. I believe that Immortal Xianqing must be able to see my talent and character and finally accept him as a disciple. As long as I become Immortal Xianqing's disciple, I will have a solid background. At that time, Brother Xianmu will definitely look up to me with admiration." Lu Zixi bit her nails, made the hysterical laughter again, and muttered, "Shiyu dies." Tong Bing said with a low smile, "Fairy Zixi, let's wait for the good show." Not far away, Caillou looked at them from behind and slowly clenched the powerless hands hanging by his sides. Chapter 1531. Little Monster. After the chaos, Nangong Hua and the others fled. The students of Miracle Healer Academy also dispersed. Nangong Yu hugged Heshi and whispered, "Shir, I want you to meet my grandmother. She is the only person in the Nangong family who truly cares about me. I want to share with her that you are the woman in my life, and I want to tell her that I want to marry you as my one and only wife. Sheer, are you willing? Hashi smiled slightly. When she was about to say yes, immortal Xianqing pulled Hashi behind him, glared at Nangongyu, and said, "No. As I said, you can only marry my disciple after you sort out the mess. Moreover, my Shiyu is a maiden. Give her the respect she deserves. Your uncle has belittled my disciple to such an extent. How can you still let her go there? How can my disciple be so cheap?" Immortal Xianqing waved his hand as he made the call. "I can allow my apprentice to visit your grandmother. However, I need the Nangong family to formally invite my disciple with proper etiquette, lest people say that my disciple is flattering your Nangong family again." As he said that, he turned his head and glared at Hashi. "If you dare to follow the boy secretly, I won't recognize you as my disciple." Hashi smiled helplessly, but she also knew that immortal Xianqing had good intentions, so she could only shrug her shoulders toward Nangongyu. Nangongyu looked serious, nodded, and said, "Immortal Xianqing is right. I will go back and communicate with my grandmother first, then I will formally invite Sheer to meet her. I will never let Sheer suffer any grievances." Immortal Xianqing nodded in satisfaction. "Well, you are still not hopelessly bad yet." After Nangongyu left, Hashi took immortal Xianqing back to the dormitory. Xianmu had gone elsewhere. His whereabouts had been erratic these 2 days. The dormitory of Huang Medical Branch was simple and shabby, but immortal Xianqing didn't mind. He enjoyed the delicious foods and wines prepared by Hashi. After eating full, he asked Hashi in detail about what happened during this period. Immortal Xianqing's expression became a bit serious when he heard the big commotion Hashi made when she advanced to the gold core stage. He probed into Hashi's body with spiritual power for a while. He felt that her spiritual power was at least 3 times more than ordinary gold core stage martial artists. He said with a complicated expression, "My darling disciple, I already consider myself well-informed, but I've never seen a little monster like you. Chaos Dantian already gave you a better talent than others, but in just 1 year, you skipped several levels in a row, from the Foundation Establishment stage to the Gold Core stage, and it is even the Gold Core stage perfect stage. If people know about such advancement speed, even the talented disciples of the big sects in Siam continent can only sigh in shame." Hashi smiled slightly and said without shame, "If I'm not talented, how will Master accept me as your disciple?" Immortal Xianqing was happy by her words. Then he looked worried. "The first time I saw you, I felt that the spiritual power on your body seemed to contain the breath of life. It is the breath that someone with wood's spiritual root can exude. Now that you have advanced to the gold core stage, I'm even more sure now. My darling disciple, in addition to the dual sky spiritual root of water and fire, do you still possess the wood's spiritual root?" Hashi suddenly raised her head and met immortal Xianqing's deep eyes. She just hesitated for a moment before she nodded. "God." Immortal Xianqing let out a low cry, as if he was looking at a monster. Chapter 1532. Purple Jade Phoenix Hairpin. Does this little girl know what it means to have a skywood spiritual root? Even in Siam continent, I have never heard of a person who can have a 100% pure sky spiritual root. However, if immortal Xianqing knows that what Hashi possessed was not only the wood sky spiritual root, but also a wood source that made all creatures go crazy for it, what would his expression be? After being surprised, immortal Xianqing's expression turned serious. "You must not let anyone know about your wood sky spiritual root, especially the people in the upper realm." Hashi smiled and nodded. She would not say that Nangongyu knew from the beginning, lest her master get mad again. Immortal Xianqing was serious for a while, then he immediately lay down on the bed. While gnawing on the chicken leg, he shook his head and sighed. "I didn't expect that you would save that old Huiyu and establish a tie with him. That Huiyu looks kind on the surface, but in fact, he is extremely difficult to please. I didn't expect him to be impressed with you. By the way, you said that he gave you a gift?" Hashi took out the purple jade hairpin that venerable Huiyu let Wei Qingyuan deliver and handed it to immortal Xianqing. Immortal Qianqing narrowed his eyes and glanced into the jade box, but this glance made him jump up in shock. Purple jade, phoenix hairpin? What's wrong? He blinked. Anything problem with this hairpin? Big problem. Immortal Qianqing looked at He with a complicated expression, making a chewing sound. The purple jade phoenix hairpin is very famous in Siam continent. Not to mention its powerful talisman array, which increases the cast speed, flying speed, and movement speed of those who wore it. Just that exquisite style can make women scramble for it. But in Siam continent, few women would wear this purple jade phoenix hairpin. Hui Yi actually gifted this thing to Shiyu? What the hell is this old Hui Yi planning? Facing Heshi's questioning eyes, Immortal Qianqing scratched his beard for a long time before saying, Purple jade phoenix hairpin and phoenix feather heavenly dress are originally a set. It is said that the purple hairpin and heavenly dress complement each other and can emit colorful light, which is too beautiful to behold. However, few people dare to wear it. Why? In Siam continent, many women tried to wear the purple jade phoenix hairpin and phoenix feather heavenly dress, but when they wear the heavenly dress, it will become dull. Not to mention the colorful light, it is even worse than coarse linen dress. It will also accentuate the ugliness of those women. KSK, you know how much those female cultivators love beauty. Letting them wear a dress that will make them ugly is worse than killing them. So, over time, this purple jade phoenix hairpin and phoenix feather heavenly dress have become treasures that many women love and hate at the same time. There is another reason that Immortal Qianqing didn't say. There are rumors that a woman who can wear the phoenix feather heavenly dress will become. He smiled lowly and shut the jade box, interrupting Immortal Qianqing's reverie. Whether it makes me look beautiful or ugly, it doesn't matter to me. If it's really useless, at worst, I'll find a chance to sell it. Equals in the Mojing Pavilion. Yun Jingxue stared straight at a jade box that old lady Nangong opened. Inside was a dazzlingly beautiful dress that exuded a radiant light. Yun Jingxue believed that there was no woman who would not want to wear such a dress, and no woman would not want to stand in the spotlight. Chapter 1533. Phoenix Feather, Heavenly Dress, Old Lady. Is this the legendary Phoenix Feather Heavenly Dress? Yun Jingxue exclaimed. Old Lady, are you going to give this dress to Jingxue? Old Lady Nangong sighed and said, Jingxue, you won't like this dress. This Phoenix Feather Heavenly Dress has been in our Nangong family for decades. Although no one can wear it, I still regarded it as a family heirloom. It's a pity that Lu Wushuang wanted it specifically, so I brought this piece of clothes to Miluo continent. Yun Jingxue became anxious. She said in a high-pitched voice, Old Lady, how could Jingxue not like this dress? Such a beautiful wedding dress. If Jingxue could wear it to marry cousin Yu, how wonderful would it be? Lu Wushuang is so old already. Why does she want this beautiful dress? However, as soon as Yun Jingxue was about to say that, she swallowed the words back. Not to mention that Yun family was far inferior to Lu family. Her own life was still in Lu Wushuang's hands. Old Lady Nangong looked at her with pity and said with a half-smile, If you don't believe me, Jingxue, try wearing this phoenix feather heavenly dress. Yun Jingxue was full of excitement. She couldn't wait to go behind the screen and put on the phoenix feather heavenly dress. This was also where phoenix feather heavenly dress was different from other clothes. It couldn't be worn by spells. A moment later, Yun Jingxue came out from behind the screen with a face full of anticipation. When she moved his feet, the ornaments on the phoenix feather heavenly dress made a pleasant jingle sound, just like the sound of heaven. However, as soon as Old Lady Nangong saw it, her face became stiff and her mouth twitched. She originally planned to say a few words of flattery, but she couldn't say a word. But the maid standing behind Old Lady Nangong couldn't help but burst out laughing when she saw her appearance. Yun Jingxue's complexion suddenly became extremely ugly. She suppressed her anger and embarrassment and asked the maid to bring the glass mirror. When Yun Jingxue saw her own appearance in the glazed mirror, her face was distorted. The dress she was wearing wasn't gorgeous at all. It was just an inconspicuous sackcloth. The coarse sackcloth tightly wrapped her waist and legs, which set off her thick waist and short legs, making her figure ugly. Her graceful figure was gone. The most frightening thing was that her hair that was burned by Shi's flame was originally covered up with spiritual power, but it was exposed after wearing this phoenix feather heavenly dress. The bumpy scalp looked like it had been bitten by a dog. The woman in the glass mirror in front of her was even inferior to a county girl, let alone a beauty in the Siam continent. Ah! Yun Jingxue screamed in horror. She fled behind the screen desperately, frantically tore off the dress, and shouted, "What kind of shit dress is this?" The phoenix feather heavenly dress was quickly taken off without any damage. After leaving Yun Jingshue's body, it immediately shone brightly again. Old Lady Nangong obsessively put the phoenix feather heavenly dress back into the jade box. Her vaguely contemptuous gaze swept over Yun Jingxue, and it became kind again. With tears of grievance in her eyes, Yun Jingxue was about to speak. Suddenly, a guard's voice came from outside the door. "Old lady, young Master Yu has come to see you." Old Lady Nangong straightened up excitedly and shouted, "Quick, let Yu in." Chapter 1534. Grandma understands. There was a gloomy light in Yun Jingshue's eyes. Of course, she knew what Nangong Yu was here for. Remembering Tong Bing's instructions, she moved closer to Old Lady Nangong's ear and whispered a few words. Old Lady Nangong's eyes turned grim, but a generous and kind smile appeared on her mouth. She grabbed Yun Jingshue's hand and patted it gently. "Don't worry, Jingxue, I know better than anyone that what is best for Yu and the Nangong family. Yu will definitely marry you, but you have to be patient, understand?" Knowing that Old Lady Nangong had agreed to their plan, Yun Jingxue smiled triumphantly and sinisterly before leaving. "Xiu, you must be very proud for burning my hair and humiliating me in front of everyone, right? However, soon I will make you cry. Your end will be 100 times worse than mine." Nangong Yu walked into the room quickly. When he saw the old lady sitting upright, looking at him with a kind smile, he put up a sincere smile. He knelt down on both knees and solemnly kowtowed to Old Lady Nangong. "Grandson pays respects to grandma. Get up, get up." Old Lady Nangong excitedly stood up from her seat with tears in her eyes and helped Nangong Yu up. Nangong Yu looked at Old Lady Nangong's gray hair at the sideburns, and he looked a little guilty. Old Lady Nangong's cultivation was only gold core stage. Now she had lived for 300 years. Her lifespan had slowly come to an end. As a grandson, he stayed in Miluo continent because of the blood feud of his parents. He had never been filial to his grandmother. Only now did he realize that his grandmother was so old. Nangong Yu held the old lady's old hand and said in a low voice, "Grandmother, after grandson gets married and kills the Valley Master of the 1,000 Poison Valley to avenge father, I will go to Siam continent and stay by your side in the future." Hearing that Nangong Yu said that he was going to kill the Valley Master of the 1,000 Poison Valley, Old Lady Nangong's expression froze visibly. However, she quickly covered it up and pressed Nangong Yu's hand. With tears in his eyes, she choked up and said, "Okay, Grandma believes in you. Grandma has been looking forward to the day of reunion with you." The two sat down and talked about some of their daily lives. Old Lady Nangong asked Nangong Yu how he had been in the past few years and whether he had been wronged. Nangong Yu answered patiently one by one. When it was about time, Nangong Yu coughed lightly with a slightly shy expression. "Grandmother, about Xiu, the sweetheart whom grandson wants to marry. Grandson wants to tell you that you don't need to say any more." Old Lady Nangong grabbed his hand and looked at him with trusting eyes. "I've heard that Xiu is a man. Grandma, listen to me. In fact, listen to your grandmother first." Tears slowly welled up in Old Lady Nangong's eyes. Her expression was full of regret and sadness, When I first heard Jingxue say that you were going to marry a man, grandmother was really very disappointed. Because grandma hoped so much that you would get married and have children to carry on the family line for your father. But later, grandma figured it out. You want to marry Xiu so much. It must be because he is a good boy and you really like him, right? Nangongyu nodded with a somewhat dumbfounding expression. Grandma, I was just about to tell you. Needless to say, grandma understands. Old lady Nangong smiled kindly. Her eyes were full of love. Chapter 1535. Are you stupid? As long as you like Xiu, as long as this Xiu is a good boy, what does it matter if he is a man? Do you think grandma would make the same mistake of the past again? Because of my stubbornness, I did my best to stop your father and mother, but I killed both of them.
No.
Grandma will never make the same mistake I made back then. Do you really like that boy named Xiu? Do you want to marry him? Nangongyu gave a low laugh and gave up explaining that she was a girl. Grandma supports and trusts me to the point that even if I'm marrying a man, she is still standing by my side. This feeling really moves me deeply. Moreover, I can also let Xiu know that not all of my relatives reject her. There is someone who really likes her. After getting married, I will bring Sheer to serve tea to his grandmother. When the grandmother finds out the identity of Sheer woman, she will be very happy, right? Thinking of this, Nangongyu smiled and nodded heavily. Of course, Grandma. I will marry no one other than Sheer in my life. Great.
Great.
Grandma will support you. Old lady Nangong laughed. Then why don't you bring that boy named Xiu to Grandma? Nangongyu pursed his lips. The smile on his face faded a little, and a dark light flashed in his eyes. Old lady Nangong immediately thought of something, and she snorted. Did your uncles go to trouble Xiu because of his status? Humph, don't worry about them. Grandma will ensure that no one can stop you from marrying anyone. Nangongyu smiled, stood up, and bowed deeply to old lady Nangong. Grandma, grandson will go and ask Xiu to see you now. Wait a minute. Old lady Nangong immediately grabbed Nangongyu's hand and said with a frown, You don't need to explain. Your uncles must have angered that boy named Xiu, right? Nangongyu pursed his lips and remained silent. These troublemakers. Old lady Nangong patted heavily on the side, then she smiled. Why don't we do this? Tomorrow I will host a banquet and invite the elders and deans of Miracle Healer Academy, plus the people of our Nangong family. By then, we will clarify Xiu's identity to everyone. This way we won't wrong that boy. What do you think? Nangongyu was stunned for a long time when he heard the words. It took a while for him to say in a low voice, Thank you, Grandma. I'll tell Sheer right away. How can I let you go? Old lady Nangong laughed, patted his hand, and said, You have just left him for just a short while, and you start to miss him already? Grandma will personally invite him to show my respect. As for you, stay here obediently for Grandma today. After tomorrow, when your relationship is finalized, Grandma will discuss the wedding date with Xiu's master. By then, are you still afraid that this wife will run away? Nangongyu's face was slightly red, but there was a deep, joyful smile in his eyes. He nodded in response. As soon as he thought that tomorrow would be his engagement with Sheer, he couldn't restrain the joy in his heart. This day has finally come. After Nangongyu left, old lady Nangong sat quietly in her seat without any expression on her face. After a while, the door was suddenly pushed open. Nangonghua walked into the room frowning and asked bluntly, Mother, I heard that you agree with Nangongyu to marry that Xiu as his wife? Are you stupid? That Xiu is a man. Chapter 1536. Banquet. Old lady Nangong snorted and glanced at Nangonghua with fierce gaze. I haven't asked you yet. As a dignified cultivator from the upper realm, you actually embarrassed yourself in a place like Miluo continent. Do you know how much will our Nangong family's prestige be reduced when this gets to the Siam continent? Nangong Hua looked extremely ugly when he thought of being threatened by Nangong Yu in public and slapped by immortal Qianqing. Old Lady Nangong sneered and said, "Don't worry about Xi's affairs. There's no way this kind of scum marries into my Nangong family. You just need to stand by and watch. Not everything has to be solved by force. Sometimes backstabbing hurts the most." Nangong Hua was overjoyed. When he was about to speak, Old Lady Nangong suddenly coughed violently. The coughing sound was heart-piercing. Her whole face was flushed red. The old lady seemed to have many wrinkles on her face, as if it was an illusion. "Mother, are you okay? Get out. Get out now. Do you hear me?" After Nangong Hua went out, Old Lady Nangong took out a porcelain bottle from the storage space, poured the medicine powder in the porcelain bottle into a porcelain bowl, cut her own wrist, dripped blood in, and drank it. After drinking the blood, the wrinkles on Old Lady Nangong's face disappeared instantly. The originally gray temple hair became much darker. Looking at the porcelain vase in her hand, Old Lady Nangong looked complicated. After a long time, she murmured, "For eternal youth and immortality, can my grandson and Nangong family be more important?" No one knows what it feels like to be from the upper realm but unable to break through to the nascent soul stage. When everyone around me is young and beautiful, I'm getting old and dying day by day. Lu Wushuang, who takes a fancy on my son, is even decades older than me. I'm the old lady of the Nangong family, and I will never accept dying of old age. In the early morning of the next day, after Heshi woke up from meditation, finished cleaning, and withdrew her consciousness from the void, she heard Qing Wan's voice. "Miss, there are people visiting outside the yard." The dormitory was empty. Xian Mu still hadn't come back. Immortal Qianqing had been gone with a ring full of food and wine. Heshi was also extremely helpless toward her master. It was flattering to say that he was erratic like the divine dragon. He simply appeared for food, then he left after eating full. Thinking about it, Heshi couldn't help laughing herself. As soon as she walked out of the yard, Heshi saw an old woman dressed plainly, but with a noble demeanor in her gestures. As soon as the old woman saw Heshi, she immediately smiled and bowed to her. "I'm Mammy Chi, maid of Old Lady Nangong. I came here especially to invite Mr. Xiu to a banquet." "Old Lady Nangong?" Heshi blinked. "Isn't that Nangong Yu's grandmother?" It seems that she is the only relative of the Nangong family that Nangong Yu admits. Thinking of this, Heshi stopped putting on airs. Although there was not much expression on her face, she still respectfully bowed back. "Thank you, old lady, for your hospitality." It's just, before Heshi could finish speaking, Mammy Chi showed some understanding on her face and said with a light smile, "Mr. Xiu, the old lady already knows about the matter between you and young Master Yu. She has agreed to marry between you and young Master Yu. So, today's banquet is not only our Nangong family's banquet, but it is also to announce the wedding news to everyone. Mr. Xiu, are you willing to attend?" Chapter 1537. Something is wrong. Heshi's expression froze. Heshi carefully observed Mammy Chi's expression. She noticed something peculiar with Mammy Chi's gaze beneath the smile. Wait, Mammy Chi still doesn't know my true identity? What's Nangong Yu up to? Wasn't he supposed to tell his grandmother about it? Wait a minute. If old lady Nangong didn't know my true gender, why would she agree to let Nangong Yu marry me? Is she that open-minded in her thinking? Heshi's mouth twitched slightly as her hair fluttered along the wind. Mammy Chi urged Heshi again and asked if she could invite her master to go with her. She coughed softly after recollecting her thoughts. Sorry, my master left earlier. I'll go with Mammy. Qing Wan tugged on Heshi's sleeve, simultaneously excited and nervous. Miss, are you going to really become our princess? Did you agree to the marriage? Heshi blushed and said softly, Well, if I don't marry that guy, who else can I marry? Anyway, I will get married sooner or later, so why make it complicated? Tears of joy welled up in Qing Wan's eyes and streamed down her face. Qing Wan said incoherently, "That's great. Master is so blessed," and other nonsense. It took a long time for her to recover. Then, she grabbed Heshi's sleeve. "Miss, are you attending the banquet in this dress?" Heshi froze for a moment, then looked down. Heshi wore the school uniform of Miracle Healer Academy. The uniform used white color as the base, with dark blue thread embroidery of cloud patterns. It looked neither flashy nor dull, but rather refreshing and elegant. Especially when paired with Goshi's mesmerizing and captivating face, it gave her an ethereal and enchanting aura. "Well, there's nothing wrong with that, right?" Qing Wan was about to cry. "There is nothing wrong with it. But this is men's clothing. It's also the most common men's clothing in Miracle Healer Academy." Heshi smiled and nodded. "Do you want me to change into women's clothes? Are you not afraid of scaring old lady Nangong to death?" After finishing speaking, Heshi quickly left with Mammy Chi, leaving Qing Wan alone. Since the Nangong family would be holding a banquet at Miracle Healer Academy, the event was set at the Mojing Pavilion. Mojing Pavilion and Beijing Pavilion had enchantments. Heshi had the inscribed jade slip of Beijing Pavilion, but not Mojing Pavilion. When Heshi arrived before the Mojing Pavilion's barrier, Mammy Chi handed over an inscribed jade slip to Heshi. She said with an amiable smile, "Mr. Shiyu, your humble servant still has matters to attend to. Please enter the Mojing Pavilion first. There will be someone there to assist you." Heshi nodded. Mammy Chi smiled and disappeared in a flash. In Siam continent, even an old mammy of the Nangong family attained the peak level of the gold core stage. Despite so, the Nangong family could only be regarded as an insignificant small family in Siam continent. The evidence pointed out how Siam continent was completely at another level from Miluo continent, being more powerful and following the survival of the fittest rule strongly. Heshi smiled slightly, then she went through the barrier with Qing Wan. However, just after passing the barrier, Heshi was startled. She sensed something was wrong. The place before them was a gloomy and eerie emptiness, and the air was filled with sweltering heat. Heshi gathered spirit in her gaze. She discovered that the area was filled with formations, densely packed with complicated patterns. She hardly understood any of them. Chapter 1538. Aphrodisiac. Heshi tried to exert her spiritual power, but the formations immediately operated with luster flowing around the patterns. A heavy suction force took away her spiritual power completely. Heshi's expression became dignified and surprised. Obviously, she had fallen into someone's trap. The person knew her weaknesses. Heshi was proficient in many things but was lacking in the aspect of formations. Heshi took a few steps forward. She realized that not only her spiritual power was absorbed, but her stamina also depleted under the formations. Then, wisps of faint fragrance wafted in the air. This fragrance carried a hint of sweetness with a faint bloody pungent that was hard to notice by ordinary people. However, given Heshi's expertise, she could quickly identify it. It was rosemary, a neurotoxin that confused the mind and stimulated the nerves. Or, to put it more bluntly, it was an aphrodisiac. Even though Heshi was aware of it, she inadvertently inhaled a wisp of the drug. Even though she held her breath immediately, the sweet aroma spread through her nose, gradually invading her brain and confusing her mind. The sound of faint footsteps came slowly from not far away. Heshi looked over. She seemed to see Nangong Yu slowly walking toward her from a distance with a doting smile. In Mojing Pavilion, the Nangong family's banquet was about to start. This time, the Nangong family invited almost all the elders of Miracle Healer Academy, as well as some elite students from various branches. In addition to the big shots from Miracle Healer Academy and Miracle Healer City, even representatives from the three major families, excluding the Feng family, also came. However, because the Nangong family's banquet was held in a hurry, the four major families could only send martial artists stationed in Miracle Healer City. No core figures were present. Old Lady Nangong sat at the main seat with a proud and kind smile. She received respectful greetings from Miracle Healer Academy's dean, Jean Licheng. Just as they were chatting, a servant's voice came from outside. President of the Doctors Association, Lu Shuyong, and the elder, Master Shukong, have arrived. Hearing Lu Shuyong's name, Nangong Hua narrowed his eyes. He had long known that the Doctors Association's president, who was well known in Miluo continent, had already joined the Green Vine clan. The Nangong family was a force belonging to the Lu family, and the two were in harmony. However, he didn't know why Lu Shuyong visited today. Just as he was thinking, a man wearing a scholar's robe with a gentle, elegant face slowly approached the hall. An old man with a white beard and hair exuding a noble air followed behind him. Then, there was a middle-aged man with a robust physique and a sallow complexion. Seeing this, Lu Zixi, who was already in her seat, immediately ran over with a smile. She took Lu Shuyong's hand and said playfully, "Daddy, why didn't you tell me that you're coming?" Lu Shuyong patted Lu Zixi with a gentle and elegant smile. Without saying much, he swiftly walked to the front of Old Lady Nangong and Nangong Hua before bowing respectfully to them with Lu Zixi. Old Lady Nangong's face beamed with a smile as she praised Lu Zixi with a few kind words before instructing the servants to guide them to their seats. Nangong Hua's eyes fell on the strange man with a sallow complexion. The aura emanating from this man was at least the intermediate level of the soul-splitting stage, which was almost on par with him. Chapter 1551. Recording stone. Yun Jingxue impatiently shoved him. Suddenly, Tong Bing shook, emitting a spiritual power fluctuation. Immediately afterward, something in his hand lit up. A video projection flashed in the space above the hall. It was a barren courtyard, but no one paid attention to where the courtyard was. Instead, all the eyes focused on the center of the projection. Before she was a fat man who was gasping for breath. His eye was filled with lust as he lunged at Shiyu. Sure enough, that person was Nangong Xian. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, shocked by the sight in front of them. The members of the Huang medical branch clenched their fists. Some of them bit their lips so hard that they almost bled. Tong Bing looked at Hashi in panic, as if he wanted to throw away the stone in his hand. "I didn't mean it. I didn't mean it. I found this recording stone at the gate of the third master's courtyard. I only secretly took a glance. Sob, I'm just worried about third master. I didn't do this on purpose." The content in the projection was straightforward. Shiyu tried to dodge, but Nangong Xian pounced on her. Then, Shiyu's breathing became more and more rapid. She sweated profusely on her face. Later on, Nangong Xian grabbed a corner of Shiyu's clothes and yanked it, tearing off the Miracle Healer Academy uniform. Even the ring-shaped jade pendant was thrown to the ground by the frantic Nangong Xian. Nangong Yu's arms around Hashi tightened. His eyes on the projection were cold and deep, giving off a looming crimson light. However, he didn't act immediately and watched the projection coldly. Hashi held Nangong Yu's cold hand and patted it lightly. She smiled after noticing that his nerves were slowly relaxing. Then, the projection revealed a different shooting angle of the scene. The people in the projection were blurred with pillars blocking it from time to time. However, everyone could tell that the thinner man had lost his strength and was pinned to the ground by Nangong Xian. His clothes were torn into pieces, revealing the young man's thin, flexible, and fair body. Nangong Xian kept calling Shiyu. He pressed the naked young man under him, hurriedly tore off his clothes, and then pressed him down after a roar. The projection became more distant and blurred, but the moans and gaspings for breath were vividly clear. Everyone heard the young man wailing in the recording as Nangong Xian assaulted him. "Nangong Xian, don't you dare. Nangong Yu will not let you go. I'm the one he wants to marry." Nangong Xian assaulted the young man with a fascinated expression. He laughed wildly. "You're already mine now. Do you truly believe that Nangong Yu would still marry someone like you, someone who's been used?" Ha ha ha, sweetheart, you'd better behave and serve me well. That's your only future. Thank you for supporting our novels. Your comment, interaction, and just by reading the novels are a great support to us. Discover what unfolds next by accessing the chapters before anyone else. Your support means the world to us. Click here to access our support page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1552. Male or female, how about it? Does it feel good now? As the two engaged with each other passionately, the young man, who initially seemed to resist adamantly, started to lose himself, emitting moans and gasps that made one's heart flutter and cheeks blush. Everyone in the hall was dead silent. They couldn't believe their eyes. On the contrary, Qingwan and Xianwu looked at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. The person in the projection was a young man, but their princess was a woman. Who is the sly and despicable jerk that's stupid enough to record a video intending to frame our princess without even knowing whether our princess is a man or a woman? Qingwan patted her chest. She suddenly noticed her hands were all sweaty, and even her forehead was covered in beads of sweat. At the beginning of the recording, when the person's clothes hadn't been torn off yet, Qingwan thought it was Xiu. The despair and fear in her heart almost made her want to scream out loud. It wasn't until the young man's naked body was revealed that she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Nangong Yu not far away, Qingwan smacked her tongue. From the beginning of the video playback, she and Xianwu were nervous. Everyone else looked shocked, but their master looked calm. His eye only contained Hishi, as if he didn't care about what was happening around him. Suddenly, someone shouted in disgust, "Xiu is so shameless. Just look at him. He's clearly enjoying it. I don't think the third master of the Nangong family violated him. It's more like Xiu throwing himself to the third master." Qian Dazhuang was furious, pointing at the man and yelling, "Shut up. That young man is not Xiu. Don't spread false rumors. I will beat you up. TCH, your excuses are pointless. Didn't you see Xiu's face right at the beginning? The recording stone can't be faked. If that person isn't Xiu, who would it be then? Moreover, there's the outfit and jade pendant evidence. Even the position of the bloodstains on the clothing matches exactly with Xiu. Who would believe you even if you said that person isn't Xiu? TSK Tisk, it's one thing to be a toy boy for Nangong Yu, but he's still having an affair with Nangong Yu's uncle. That's too shameless. In my opinion, Xiu wasn't willing. With Nangong Yu being so outstanding, how could he be interested in a fat pig like Nangong Xian? No matter if it was voluntary or forced, it had happened. Xiu had been defiled. Do you think Xiu still has the right to marry Nangong Yu? Given the video footage thus far, along with the recent discovery and Nangong Xian's behavior, most people in the hall now believe that Nangong Xian had violated Xiu. Everyone was sneaking glances at Heshi with contempt, pity, and gloating in their eyes. Then, Tongbing rushed toward Yunjing Xue, snatching the summoning stone from her hand and stuttering, "Stop it, don't play the recording stone anymore." Even if something did happen between Xiu and the third master, broadcasting such footage is like forcing Xiu to death, isn't it? This kind of filthy thing should not exist in this world. As Tongbing said so, he harnessed the spiritual power in his hand to destroy the recording stone. However, a black light suddenly flashed before his spiritual power reached the recording stone. The recording stone in Tongbing's hand disappeared. A spiritual pet resembling a little black dragon leisurely flew to Heshi with the recording stone in its mouth and put the recording stone in her hand. Chapter 1553. Don't even think about it. Heshi casually tossed the recording stone in her hand. Her gaze fell on the shocked Tongbing. With a teasing smile, she said, How can we just destroy such an exciting item? I haven't had enough of it. Wouldn't it be such a waste to destroy it? What Hushi said made everyone look at each other blankly, thinking that she had gone crazy. Only Tong Bing, who knew the inside story, frowned, grinding his teeth tightly. Then, he immediately calmed down, showing a weeping expression. Xiu, don't do this. I know you want to marry Nangong Yu. However, you already belong to the third master. You can't change this fact even if you take the recording stone away. Could it be that you're still thinking of marrying the king of hell despite everything? I don't think the king of hell wants someone who has an affair with his uncle. Lu Jishi put on a gentle and graceful look, stepped forward, and said, Nangong Yu, don't be mad. We know that Xiu is not that kind of person. Nangong Xian must have forced himself on Xiu. However, what's done is done. Yun Jingxue sneered from the bottom of her heart. She wore a virtuous expression. Yes, cousin Yu, don't be sad. We can only blame Xiu for being unlucky. Even old lady Nangong's eyes were red. She wiped her tears and choked up. Bastard, bastard, why do you have such a hard life? You finally met someone you like, and he, with a mocking smile, Hushi watched the people in the hall performing their acts. Hearing old lady Nangong's words, she pushed away Nangong Yu's hand that was holding her, looked sideways at him, and said with a teasing smile, Your Highness, King of Hell, don't you hear that? Everyone says I've been defiled, so how about we call off our wedding? Don't even think about it. Nangong Yu's expression darkened. He put her into his arms behind him, gritted his teeth, and said, As I said before, I'm determined to marry you today. No one can stop me. Nangong Yu sneered. The person who appeared in the projection initially was you, but it was only at the beginning. I, Nangong Yu, won't fail to recognize even my beloved. Everything about Sheer was engraved in the depths of his soul like a raging fire. With just one glance, Nangong Yu could tell the person wasn't Xiu. How would he be misled by a mere projection? Not to mention that the young man's body was exposed in the last scene. Even if the clothes hadn't been taken off, Nangong Yu could tell at a glance that it was an impostor. Hushi was brimming with joy. She held Nangong Yu's hand tightly, with a hint of bliss in her eyes. She suddenly had a strong feeling that being married to Nangong Yu as a wife was wonderful. While the two were being sweet and affectionate, the others couldn't believe their eyes as they watched them acting lovey-dovey as if nothing had happened. Has Nangong Yu gone crazy? Thank you for supporting our novels. Your comment, interaction, and just by reading the novels are a great support to us. Discover what unfolds next by accessing the chapters before anyone else. Your support means the world to us. Click here to access our support page. If you find any errors, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report chapter so we can fix it as soon as possible. Tip: you can use left, right, A, and D keyboard keys to browse between chapters. Chapter 1554. So, what Nangong Yu accepts Xiu even after seeing another person defiled Xiu? Could Xiu have inflicted voodoo poison on Nangong Yu, causing him to lose all his sense of reason? Even Lu Jishi had this thought in her heart. She stared at Hushi in Nangong Yu's arms, and her eyes were full of resentment and hatred. That's right. Xiu must have cast a voodoo on Nangong Yu. Otherwise, why would Nangong Yu be so obsessed with him? The hall was filled with whispers as everyone commented and pointed at Hushi and Nangong Yu. Nangong Hua coughed loudly, took a few steps forward, and said to Hushi, Xiu, since you have been intimate with third brother, I agree to let you marry into my Nangong family and become my third brother's lawful wife. As he said that, he frowned in disgust. Originally, a mere toy boy like you is not qualified to marry into our Nangong family. However, for the sake of your master, immortal Xianqing, I will allow my third brother to marry you. At this moment, Tong Bing, who squatted beside the unconscious Nangong Xian, did something and made Nangong Xian wake up faintly. As soon as Nangong Xian saw Hashi, his eyes immediately lit up with infatuation and triumph. He murmured excitedly, "Darling, my darling Shiyu, let's go for more." As he spoke, drool dribbled from the corner of his mouth. Paired with his chubby face, the sight was disgusting. A smug smile flashed across Nangong Hua's face. He coughed again and said, "Third brother, what nonsense are you spouting? How could you behave so recklessly? You have defiled immortal Xianqing's disciple. However, since you two have spent intimate moments together, you have to marry him. Even though our Nangong family doesn't want to have a man as a wife, we have no other choice now." Nangong Hua worded it helplessly, as if the Nangong family was the victim. Nangong Xian excitedly jumped from the ground, oblivious to the disheveled clothing. He pounced at Xianyu. "Darling Shiyu, don't worry. I will take responsibility for you." With a face like that, Nangong Xian would never grow tired of it, even if he looked at it for a lifetime. Moreover, he was under the influence of the drug, so he couldn't appreciate Shiyu's peerless beauty in the desolate yard. He felt he didn't enjoy the experience to the fullest. However, he could have all the fun he wanted after marrying Shiyu. Thinking of defiling Nangong Yu's lover, the blood in his body boiled in excitement. However, a sharp white light whizzed toward him before Nangong Xian got close to Shiyu. Nangong Hua, who was behind Nangong Xian, quickly reacted to pull him back from danger with spiritual power. Yet, Nangong Xian let out a shriek like a pig being slaughtered. A large amount of blood gushed out between his legs. The sword light was 1 inch away from castrating Nangong Xian. He was lucky that Nangong Hua pulled him back. Pointing at Nangong Yu, who was calmly sheathing his sword, Nangong Hua roared in fury, "Nangong Yu, have you lost your mind? He's your uncle. Are you trying to castrate him?" "So what?" Nangong Yu sneered, "If anyone dares to insult Shiyu, I don't mind castrating a few more people." Even though Nangong Xian avoided being castrated, his femoral artery was severed. He lost a lot of blood and passed out. Despite immediate medical attention, he was barely clinging to life with an ashen face. Chapter 1555. How can this person be a young lady? He looked at old lady Nangong and said sternly, "Mother, you decide how to settle this matter." He didn't believe old lady Nangong would agree to let Nangong Yu marry a defiled man like Shiyu. Old lady Nangong's face wore an expression filled with distress, sorrow, fear, and conflict. She looked at Nangong Yu and then at Shiyu, and tears streamed down her face. She wanted to say something, but couldn't bear it. The hostility in Nangong Yu's heart dissipated a lot immediately. Only old lady Nangong had never said anything bad about Shiyu since the beginning. Nangong Yu sighed softly and said to old lady Nangong, "Grandma, that person is not Shiyu." Old lady Nangong was stunned momentarily, not understanding what Nangong Yu meant. Yun Jingxue, who was supporting old lady Nangong, exclaimed in shock, "Cousin Yu, stop deceiving yourself. Anyone with eyes can tell that that person is Shiyu. Have you lost your mind because of this man?" Everyone nodded one after another and looked at Nangong Yu with pity. The king of hell fell in love with a man so crazy that he couldn't even think straight. However, Nangong Yu started to laugh softly. There was a hint of mockery in his soft laughter, which soon became a hearty laughter. Nangong Yu couldn't wait to see the wonderful expressions of the people who framed Shiyu when they knew the truth. Old lady Nangong stepped forward in a panic and grabbed Nangong Yu's hand. What's wrong with you? Do you scare your grandma like that?" Nangong Yu patted old lady Nangong's hand with a leisurely smile. "Grandmother, I'm fine. That person isn't Shiyu. I swear on my deceased parents that misfortune will befall me if I'm lying." The people present were even more shocked. What's going on? Nangong Yu actually made such a serious oath? Old lady Nangong was nervous and said in a panic, "Take back your words. Why are you swearing like that?" Then old lady Nangong paused, wondering, Why are you so sure?" Nangong Yu didn't answer, but he asked Hashi, who was not far away, with a glance. Shiyu nodded with a gentle smile. Only then did Nangongyu speak up, because the Shiyu I admire is not a man at all, but the woman I deeply cherish. The person Nangong Xian violated in the recording stone was clearly a man, so how could he be Shiyu? What? How can that be? The audience was in an uproar, and all eyes were on Shiyu. Afterward, they shook their heads together.
No.
It's impossible. No matter how you look at it, the person in front of us is a young man. Even though he is exceptionally handsome and has a delicate frame, look at his brows and the subtle hint of a developing Adam's apple. How can this person be a young lady? Old Lady Nangong froze for a long while before saying, I understand that you can't accept this reality for a while, but you can't deceive yourself like this. Shiyu is clearly a man. How can he be a young lady? Chapter 1556. Are you blind?
Yeah.
Everyone on the Miluo continent knows that Shiyu, the young master of Xingda Hall, is a man. Aren't you just talking nonsense?
He's right.
Shiyu is talented, and he shows excellent combat prowess. I've heard that he is a decisive person. Few men can do that, let alone a woman. The members of the Miracle Healer Academy were stunned. Shock filled their eyes, and it was quickly replaced with disbelief. Even the unflappable Xian Mu had his pupils shrink at this moment. He locked his gaze firmly on Shiyu. I had shared a dorm with Shiyu for quite a while. Shiyu, who had never exhibited any trace of femininity, is a woman? How is it possible? However, with my understanding of Nangongyu, he wouldn't lie about such a matter. Tong Bing laughed sharply and said hysterically, Nangongyu, even if you want to fabricate lies, at least make them believable. Who in Miracle Healer Academy doesn't recognize Shiyu? Who doesn't know that Shiyu is a man? No one will believe your lies. Before Nangongyu could reply, Hashi had already chuckled lightly. Looking at Tong Bing, she sneered, Tong Bing, I have lived in the same dormitory with you for so long, and I didn't know that you liked man. Furthermore, you are willing to be someone else's toy boy. How would you know if I'm a man or a woman? Tong Bing's complexion twisted for a moment. His mask trembled slightly on his face. He couldn't even deny that he was Tong Bing. He shouted hysterically, we can all see your gender. Don't treat us as if we're blind. On the contrary, when Qian Dazhuang and the others heard the name, Tong Bing, their complexions changed. They looked at him with hostility. Hashi sneered and said leisurely, Oh, really? Then, let's see if your eyes are blind. As soon as Hashi finished speaking, she had a special potion in her hand. The potion carried the fragrance of 9th secluded spirit spring. She wiped it on her face, hands, and neck. In the blink of an eye, the previously handsome, elegant, and heroic young man lost his masculinity. The bushy eyebrows had transformed into thin, arching eyebrows, resembling the curved willow leaves. Seeing them from afar made them look like graceful eyebrows. The long, narrow eyes carrying the grace of a phoenix lost their sharp coldness. Instead, those eyes took an air of innocence and allure. The formerly convincing Adam's apple had disappeared, revealing the neck and collarbone as fair as jade. Although the attire remained the same and even the hairstyle didn't change, everyone still felt there was something different from Shiyu. The person standing before them was no longer a striking young man, but a breathtakingly beautiful woman. Shiyu had the perfect disguise that fooled everyone. It was so convincing that despite her stunning beauty, she misled everyone about her gender. Hiss, there were gasps of surprise throughout the hall. Those in the Miracle Healer Academy who got along with Shiyu day and night, even often hanging out together, were completely stunned. They stared at Shiyu, not knowing where to put their hands and feet.
Oh.
My hand was on Shiyu's shoulder. Shiyu checked my pulse before. When I was out hunting and doing missions, I had shared the same bed with Shiyu. Chapter 1557. Physical examination. Some people were blushing, some had their eyeballs opened widely in shock, and some were still in disbelief and kept wiping their eyes. When everyone was immersed in the shock of Shiyu being a woman, Tong Bing screamed hysterically, "Impossible! How could you be a woman?" "That's not true." That scream was even more piercing and shrill than a woman's, causing many people in the hall to frown in discomfort. Lu Zixi, who was not much better than Tong Bing, also snapped out of her shock and horror, shouting in a piercing voice, "Shiyu, did you use an illusion?" "Yes, you must have used some deceptive disguise. How can you possibly be a woman? If you're a woman, why did you keep pretending to be a man and deceive everyone?" Before Hashi could speak, Qing Wan stepped forward angrily to stop Zixi. She said resentfully, "My miss is always a woman. She wears men's clothes for convenience. What's the matter? Does the Miracle Healer Academy prohibit women from dressing up as a man to study here? It's your fault for being blind and ignorant. You don't have the right to blame it on my Mississippi." Lu Zixi's face twisted in anguish as she looked at Shiyu and Nangongyu. She felt as if her chest was clawed fiercely by a cat's paw. The pain was so intense that she wanted to scream hysterically. Shiyu destroyed her pride and self-esteem over the past 6 months. This young man was more charming and had higher cultivation and better medical skills than her. Her only consolation was that Shiyu was a man. She felt she was more suitable for Nangongyu than a man. But now, reality slapped her hard. Shiyu is actually a woman. How could this be possible? Nangonghua's face also darkened. The perfect opportunity to eliminate Shiyu and tarnish Nangongyu's reputation was ruined simply because of a gender transformation. Nangonghua stepped forward, looked at Shiyu, and sneered, "You self-proclaimed you're a woman, and you expect us to believe you? I even can argue that your current appearance is nothing more than a disguise." "That's right." Yun Jingxue also came back to her senses. She held old lady Nangong's sleeve and questioned, "Unless you can prove you are a woman. Otherwise, why should we believe you?" "Old lady Nangong, am I right?" Old lady Nangong's expression turned complicated. Looking at Shiyu and Yun Jingxue, there seemed to be hesitation in her eyes, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. Nangongyu looked at Nangonghua coldly. He sneered, "Then, my second uncle, how do you want us to prove it?" Nangonghua rolled his eyes before he smirked. "Of course, the easiest way is to take off her clothes in public and verify it. In this way, no one will doubt whether Shiyu is a man or a woman. You're courting death." A flash of red light gleamed in Nangongyu's eyes as he swung his Xian Yuan sword. Nangonghua frantically dodged, narrowly avoiding the sword light that grazed his cheek. It cut through the protective layer of spiritual power and nearly severed his ear. "You!" Nangonghua held his cheek. His face flushed, and he stared at Nangongyu fiercely. As the family master of the Nangong family, his reputation was tarnished for these past 2 days. To make matters worse, it happened in front of the members of the Green Vine clan. Old lady Nangong frowned and said, "Why don't we let my mammy examine Shiyu?" A cold smile flashed in Hushi's eyes, and she looked at Nangongyu. The so-called physical examination, whether conducted in public or private, was a huge insult to her. Chapter 1558. Switching back to women's clothing. If Nangongyu dared to let the mammy physically examine her, Hashi would beat him until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen. This was the first time Nangongyu showed a stern expression to old lady Nangong. He spoke resolutely, "I know better than anyone else whether Shiyu is a man or a woman. I don't need any proof. The person marrying Shiyu is me. Since I said she is a woman, then she is a woman. It has nothing to do with whether the others believe me." Old lady Nangong's complexion froze. Her hands hidden in her sleeves were clenched into fists, and her smile became forced. You are right. Grandma has gone too far." At this time, Tong Bing interjected in a crisp voice, "Your Highness King of Hell, I think you should examine Shiyu's gender. Otherwise, how can you prove that the person who had an affair with the third master is not Shiyu? Even if your Highness King of Hell doesn't mind, it's still important to consider the reputation of the Nangong family. We wouldn't want old lady Nangong to become a laughingstock, right? Tong Bing, you're a nobody with no right to speak here." Qian Dazhuang, stunned by Shiyu's female identity, returned to his senses. He pointed at Tong Bing and scolded, "If it weren't for Shiyu saving you and helping you back then, Butler, whose son would have beaten you to death long ago. How dare you repay kindness with malice, and you even become a toy boy? Shut up. It's disgusting even to speak with you. Shiyu's biggest mistake was saving a scum like you." After returning from the magical beast forest, many people knew about Tong Bing's sneak attack on Shiyu. These people didn't like Tong Bing in the first place. Later, when Wei Chengyuan told about Shiyu's rescue of Tong Bing, many people felt sorry for Shiyu. However, everyone put the matter aside since Tong Bing was dead. Unexpectedly, he dared to make a public accusation right now at this place. Fleeting hatred and resentment flashed in Tong Bing's eyes. However, he quickly put on a pitiful and innocent look. He even took off the white mask to reveal his face. Tong Bing's appearance was deceptive. His crying look would really make people feel that he was being framed. If Shiyu is truly a woman and if she truly has a clear conscience, isn't verifying her gender the easiest solution? Did I say something wrong? Wei Chengyuan, who had been silently on the side, stood up. With an elegant smile, he commented, "Actually, there is an easier way to prove that Shiyu is a woman. If we let Shiyu change back to women's clothing, everything will be clear, right?" Everyone was startled. Then, they returned to their senses one after another, looking at Shiyu in unison. Their eyes were filled with anticipation and curiosity. Some people looked at Shiyu's gorgeous face and couldn't help but swallow quietly. Miluo continent's martial artists' outfits were not as conservative as the traditional ones in ancient times. Most of them accentuated the women's figures, making them a fairy. Shiyu wore men's clothes, so it was difficult to discern her figure. However, the truth would be revealed after she put on women's clothes. How would Shiyu, who was already so stunning in men's clothing, look in women's clothing? Even Nangong Yu couldn't help but show a fascinated expression. Speaking of which, even he had never seen Shiyu formally wearing women's clothing. During their time in the Nalan family, Sheer was mostly in disguise. Chapter 1559. Clothing. Nangong Yu wanted to see Shiyu in women's clothes, but only for his eyes. "It's even better if I can undress her, but definitely not giving the people here a free show." Thinking of this, he immediately said with a sullen face, "No, sure." It came off as a surprise when He agreed faster than Nangong Yu. She nodded before looking at a young lady from the Huang medical branch. "Excuse me, can you lend me a set of women's clothing?" It was embarrassing to iterate it. Ever since she annihilated the Nalan family, she found the clothes from Nalan He to be worn and cumbersome, so she threw them away. She had thought about buying a few suitable women's outfits for later use, but never had the time. That young lady was from Huang medical branch, so she naturally had unconditional admiration and love for Shi like a crazy fan. Hearing Shi's request for her clothes, she became so excited that her hands and feet began to shake. She fumbled around with her storage ring for quite some time, but was too flustered to take out anything from it. Her face was flushed red as she stuttered, Just a moment.
Huh?
I'll get the clothes right away." "Shiyu, wait for me. I have clothes." "I have really beautiful clothes," He smiled slightly. She wanted to calm the young lady down, but the young lady had already brought over a light green dress. Judging by the fabric and design, it was very fashionable and beautiful. This was already the girl's best dress. Yun Jingxue eyed the woman's dress and glanced at Shiyu's face. She was resentful that she had an urge to rush over and scratch Shiyu's face. When she first thought Shiyu was a man, She was already jealous. Now, her sanity was on the brink of being consumed by the flames of envy. As for Nan Gongyu, it would be great if she could marry him, but she felt it didn't matter if she couldn't. Most of the young masters of the prominent families in the Siam continent were willing to curry favor with her because of her beautiful face. What Yun Jingxue hated the most was not that Xiu stole her man away, but that Xiu had a more outstanding face than her. Suddenly, Yun Jingxue recalled a gorgeous dress and how hideous it looked when she wore it. A grim smile slowly spread from the depths of her eyes, eventually turning into the joy of gloating over another's misfortune. As long as Xiu puts on that dress, she will show her true colors, no matter whether she is a man or a woman. At that time, everyone will realize that I, Yun Jingxue, am the true beauty. Xiu is pale in comparison. Cousin Yu will undoubtedly lose interest because she will turn ugly. With that thought, Yun Jingxue quickly spoke up to stop Xiu from taking the clothes from her fan. Hold on. All eyes were on Yun Jingxue. Even old lady Nangong looked at her questioningly. Yun Jingxue took Lady Nangong's hand and said with a sweet smile, Lady Nangong, don't you think that with Xi's beauty, ordinary women's clothing simply doesn't suit her? Old Lady Nangong was taken aback for a moment. Then her eyes widened slightly, as if she had thought of something. Yun Jingxue's eyes revealed an unmistakable triumph. I believe only that dress is worthy of Xi's beauty. Lady Nangong, didn't you say that dress is the Nangong family heirloom intended for the daughter-in-law of the Nangong family? Old Lady Nangong said with astonishment. But that dress, Old Lady Nangong. Yun Jingxue shook Old Lady Nangong's hand playfully. A fleeting cold glint flashed in her eyes. Could it be that you are not satisfied with Xiu? You think she isn't good enough for Cousin Yu? Old Lady Nangong looked troubled. In the end, Yun Jingxue's attitude convinced her to summon the servant to bring the heirloom over. Chapter 1560. Extraordinary Old Lady Nangong seemed hesitant, but she sneered deep down her heart. Yun Jingxue, this idiot, dares to plot against me. If I don't present the phoenix feather heavenly dress, wouldn't it show that I don't think Xiu is worthy of Nangongyu? In that case, Nangongyu would naturally drift away from me. Still, it's not a good idea. The phoenix feather heavenly dress was the heirloom of the Nangong family and Old Lady Nangong's treasure. Every once in a while, she would take out this dress and imagine how she would look wearing it. However, phoenix feather heavenly dress had been in the Nangong family for nearly 100 years. When she was young, she was elegantly beautiful. She also tried to wear phoenix feather heavenly dress, but her beauty was ruined by the dress. As she grew older, wearing the dress only highlighted the wrinkled skin she saw in the mirror, akin to a withered tree branch. It could be said that in Siam continent, no one had ever become glamorous in phoenix feather heavenly dress. On the contrary, many people would lose their beauty and become unappealing because of the dress. Doesn't Xiu have a peerless beauty? Doesn't it make Nangongyu fascinated by her beauty? Let's see, can Nangongyu still have love and desire for Xiu under the ugliness imposed by the phoenix feather heavenly dress? Soon, a simple and exquisite dark brown jade box was brought over. The Siam continent had limited treasures that couldn't be stored in ordinary storage devices, including Nebula du Mirror and Phoenix Feather Heavenly Dress. As soon as the jade box was brought here, everyone's eyes fell on it. The antique dark brown patterns shimmered with a lustrous sheen, and the air was immediately filled with a dense spiritual power. The box for the safekeeping of the Phoenix Feather Heavenly Dress was already quite exquisite. One could imagine how dazzling the dress inside would be. Everyone couldn't help but reach out their necks, and their eyes were all on the box. The dark brown jade box was slowly opened. A myriad of light burst forth, revealing a blooming aurora. Wow! The audience was in an uproar. Everyone widened their eyes and mouths. Looking at the clothes in the jade box, their eyes were full of amazement. Some of the girls even became short of breath. Their eyes shone brightly. They had never seen such a beautiful and luxurious dress. It had seemingly captured the ultimate dream of every young lady. Lu Jishi could hardly bear it and rushed forward, wanting to grab the phoenix feather heavenly dress into her hand and prevent anyone from taking it away. Even Hashi couldn't help showing a surprised expression when she saw the dress. The dress was more than just stunning. The fabric was woven from exquisite silkworms from the snowy region, which was rare in Siam continent. Intricate patterns lay on the fabric, comprised of numerous formations. However, the combination of these formations was not jarring. Instead, it evoked a mystical beauty. Leaving aside the dress's tailoring, the iridescent jade ornaments were enchanting. Despite having gone through the record of everything, Hashi couldn't identify these ornaments. Every piece was radiant, translucent, and chilling. They were clearly far from ordinary. The Nangong family's mammy carefully picked up the phoenix feather heavenly dress. As the hem drooped and the pleated skirt swayed, the dazzling iridescent starlight made the illuminating crystal stone lose its luster. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.